At FitFiliate, we're excited to announce the Affiliate Engineering Seminar. Coming soon to an affiliate near you, don't miss this exciting opportunity to create the affiliate of your dreams. Link in show notes or in bio to register. Welcome to the FitFiliate Podcast. And welcome back to our next episode of the FitFiliate Podcast, joined by the one and only Tony, as always. But today, excited for round two with the dynamic team from McCoy Medical, Dr. Tom McCoy and Jenn Pishko. Welcome, guys, coming hot off your exciting trip to Nashville and all things out there, but great to have you back in the hot seat again.
Great to see you guys again. Appreciate you having us back and getting the chance to unpack more stuff. So excited to be here.
I was mostly just interested in how Lisa's accent was going to say Pishko, because I was really curious. I don't remember her saying that. And I'm always
Did you not pay attention last time?
I don't think I did. And I was like, I always sit over here being like, how's it going to go? Because I'm actually secretly, for everybody listening, I'm jealous of Lisa's accent. So
I'm a little jealous also.
We all are.
Yes. We keep her around because she makes me sound smart. We use her accent to make us sound cultured around here, because I just want to talk trash the whole time. No, I'm happy you guys
enjoying it.
Well, this is true. But yeah, I'm glad you guys are back. You guys will probably be, I think you are the first two-part, potentially maybe even three-part podcast we've really ever done. We've had a lot of repeat people back, but there's been an extended period of time in between with lots of changes. But I think that speaks very clearly to the immensity of the opportunity, which is here. So pumped to have you guys back.
Well, that's awesome. And thank you for the opportunity, right? Just to come back and chat more. And I think there's lots of layers to not only what we do, but also how it can be impactful to affiliate owners, coaches, but community people and, other physicians and healthcare providers. Just it's multifactorial on all levels. And so it's cool to be able to talk on that, without making everybody, listen to us for 3 hours straight, I guess.
I mean, I think they would definitely at least listen to Tom for 3 hours straight. He's like I said, he's like the combination of Fergie and Jesus. So, most people are going to be like, yes, Tom's very relaxing voice. The rest of us, maybe Tom and Lisa, Jen, you and I, we can just piss off here. The two of them got this made. But last time we talked a lot about, I think the backstory and I kind of have some notes, but I want it to be a little bit more organic anyways. But my thought was, the 1,000 or so people who were essentially either in person or, virtually present with the Health Summit, I think they got it, right? And I think that everybody else in the affiliate space now, because, CrossFit Health is becoming much more finally a part of the brand conversation, I think they're starting to click on it. And so, the goal really with part two of this conversation, because we didn't get to talk about it, was just like, what does it really look like in practice? Because in an affiliate, we know to be true that, like, if you just show up, right, it's gonna work, right? But and we have seen, every affiliate owner has seen, so many success stories that it's almost cliche, right? Like, you almost forget the magic and the power of what we do because you see it so often inside an affiliate that I think it's really easy to forget just how impactful this elegant solution is, right? Like, and you see it all the time. And what was important, and we said it last time about that Health Summit, was it was a reassurance or a reaffirmation of like, oh yeah, wait, this is actually working at a deeper level. And like, to see you guys kind of come forward and kind of run with that in terms of bridging those two worlds, I think is cool. But ideally, if the affiliates can take one thing away from this call, my hope at least, or this episode, is just how impactful what the work that they're really doing is, and then how they can really seek to quantify that even more with working with people like yourself or other people in their own personal network.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great lead in. And, what's been interesting for us is that we've spent the last couple of years kind of building and refining the process of how we work and how we do what we do. And have come to the point now to where we feel really confident in the execution and the application and the results that we've seen with our members, which is fantastic. And the next challenge in front of us, right, is really how do we give more people access to
Mhm.
what we do, right?
Yeah.
And because there's only two of us, right? And there's only so many hours in the day. And what you come to realize after doing this for a period of time is that the most important stuff, the vast majority of it, is the stuff that happens in the affiliate already
Mhm.
every day, right?
For sure.
And that is really foundational, right? So the understanding that CrossFit is the prescription, and that high intensity interval work, strength and conditioning, community connection, and appropriate attention to recovery, which including nutrition into that those kind of four pillars are the foundational bedrock of all of our health, right?
Yeah.
Now, all of us, right, at some point should look under the hood and make sure there isn't anything that you don't know, right? So there is some need at some point for access to at least basic laboratory testing to make sure that everything is as good as we think it is, right?
Mhm.
And where we're at this point is that we're, able to now offer the training and the educational pieces to affiliate owners and coaches who really want to lead this charge in their own affiliate, while providing that medical support that you will need from time to time just to make sure that everything is cool. But the point here is the health home is embedded in the community, right? It's
For sure.
not Jen and I, right, calling in remotely and leading this charge from outside, right? It's about empowering the individual affiliate and the coaches and the affiliate owners on the front line to level up their knowledge base and to be a leader, right? And
Mhm.
so there are people who may be at the point in their CrossFit careers, be they coaches or affiliate owners or both, who are ready for that, right? Who are
Sure.
ready to take that next step, both in increasing their fund of knowledge and in expanding the I don't want to say products, but the scope of what they can offer to their affiliate members to lever up their health in a way that wasn't possible before.
Yeah, for sure. I think well, the one thing I really love about this, and I guess we'll call a spade, is that with this conversation and with resources like yourself coming to light, there is certainly it's a little bit of a personal vendetta, I suppose, but there's definitely a reckoning that comes along with it, where there's going to be a lot of people now with resources like this where they're going to have to kind of put their motivation where their mouth is. And what I mean by that is that there's a lot of affiliates, and it's not just affiliates, but there's a lot of gyms in general, but the work that we do inside the affiliates is so well known and it's so observable every single day. It's like I said before, it's become cliche to some degree, right? And then on top of that, it's become such an easy talking point to talk about this thing that we do. But we all know that there's a lot of affiliates out there who aren't really trying to do it that well. So this is kind of nice to see you guys be able to bring tools to the table where they're just like, I'll have the ability now to do more for more people. And then we get to see if they actually step up and do more for more people. Because there's a lot of affiliates who are just going to be like, you can just miss me with doing more. Like, I just want to run a training gym where I can just write really hard workouts on the board and we can all just crush ourselves together. And truly that still actually works, which is hilarious, but it'll be fun to watch this, in my opinion, the separation that comes out of this thing.
Yeah, and I would agree with that point too, right? Because the idea of this is amazing, right? But it does take work, and it takes reframing the way that you think about things or the way that you interact with people, or learning how to do things that if you've owned and operated an affiliate or a gym or a box or whatever for 8, 9, 10 years and you've autopiloted it and kind of just let it ride. And it's like, this works and I know it works, so I'm not going to mess too much with other things. But this is, something that's intriguing and it's different, and it has the potential to force people to become uncomfortable again, right? And I think it was funny, right? It was at the health summit. I think you were on the panel with Miranda, right? When you guys were talking about doing the hard stuff. And I think from street parking. And so she had highlighted, and we all know this, I think, but like, it's nice to hear it sometimes. It's like, we do uncomfortable things every day, but we get really good at doing the same uncomfortable things repeatedly, so that it's not really discomfort anymore, right? Like we can do 100 burpees for time as fast as possible, and that type of discomfort becomes comfortable, right? And so not having the self-efficacy to do something new or learn something new or feel foolish doing it or all of that stuff, it comes with learning new things. And so we talked about this yesterday, right? Because there's the scientific application of understanding some of this stuff from a health standpoint, but then there's also like thinking of the business setup in a little bit of a different way. And then the scope of how those two things interact with each other. And so, there could be people that are coming from both sides, whether they be coaches or owners, or healthcare providers or whatever it is, where there's one part of that that's very uncomfortable, right? And whether it's their knowledge base, their experience, how long it's been since they, read a research article, like lots of different things can make this process uncomfortable. But it's going to be necessary if you're going to be looking to build something that works, because we know it works, but now you have to dig in a little bit deeper and do it a little bit differently.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, Tom, you said it last time on the last episode about basically being a student of life and like continuing to learn. And to me, as somebody who I also consider myself a student of life, but also like I find it to be very valuable to play that role in many people's lives. I'm excited to see, a different continuing conversation of education and application for so many people. And truly, many people might not, listen or be interested in it. And I think that that's fine, because, what we know to be true is that the percentage of affiliates who do get this and they do want to take to this fight and they want to move into this evolution, I guess we'll call it, no matter what, they're still going to end up benefiting and bolstering the ones who don't, for the same reason why they're going to actually benefit and bolster the ones who do. And I think it's symbiotic no matter who does it. And I think it highlights a thing that we've been saying for a while and a trend that we've just noticed, and just that there's two types of affiliates, right? There's a training affiliate and there's a coaching affiliate. And it's not that one is better than the other. They're just different. Some gyms are just about building a great facility to do the thing in, with the best amount of resources and time and space, et cetera. And then there's other affiliates who are like, hey, why are you struggling with the thing? And so I think what we have here is just another sort of continuing conversation or a continuing evolution of that'll be very cool.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Tony, because the cool thing is that the what, right, which is CrossFit, still works, right? No matter if you are just a programming affiliate, that's what you do. Like, it doesn't matter that you don't understand the deeper principles from, a metabolic health standpoint or what have you about why this is impactful. But there is a subset of affiliates and affiliate owners and coaches who may really enjoy having a deeper understanding of the why behind the efficacy of CrossFit and how to augment that and provide a broader scope of kind of health support to their affiliate to really convert it into a health home. And all the benefits that brings along from it, right? It's like, yeah, sure, there's a revenue component, but like the professional, enjoyment that you get out of continuing education and deepening your knowledge base in an area that you're probably already passionate about, but now you have structure around it, and it opens up a potential new revenue stream for you. And how cool that if it's something that is interesting, you get to learn more and you can make money doing it and strengthen the affinity of your members to your health home. I mean, these are all win-win-wins, right? But to your point, it's not for everybody, right? Not everybody is at that point, and it may not be for you now, but maybe it will be in 5 years. Like it's going to be different for each affiliate.
Yeah, for sure. I think anything that lets you bring something new and exciting home is always a good thing, right? Like, because it just helps you not necessarily have to change things, but look at, what are we doing in terms of like, maybe you don't, continuing that point, like maybe you don't move into a full indoctrination of this conversation. But I think even through just being present in this conversation, at least let you step back and be like, what are we doing to move people closer to those things? Even if we don't move into, the health home conversation, like, how do we know we're actually making people healthier? I mean, we can see it on the whiteboard, but maybe we should ask some better questions of ourselves. And I think for me that anything you can do to create some degree of self-awareness in your life, and I think when you've owned in a business for 10 years, something like this comes up and you're like, huh, it really forces you to be like, wait a minute, I should think twice about that.
Yeah, no, it's funny you bring that up because I think that principle of observable, measurable, repeatable, right, that we have in CrossFit is the same philosophy that we apply to the medical practice, right? And it's we try and be very data driven and objective in what we're seeing, right? And then we assess it, we make a plan, we intervene, and then we reassess, right? And so that principle and approach, I think, fits very well with our CrossFitting minds because it's how we already think in many ways, right?
Yeah. I mean, of course, a scientific method, right? I mean, and like with each single client, there's a hypothesis, right? I think I can involve this intervention and it's going to, achieve this outcome and it will look like what we agree is success for you. I think that piece is missing from a lot of the conversation in many affiliates because most of them don't really truly grasp the scientific method part of it. They get the program, they get the methodology, and they're like, it just works. And you can see this when a new person sits down with them. If the first thing out of their mouth is the affiliate owner just starts telling them what they do without learning what it is that is the experiment, so to speak, you can kind of already tell the difference. So I think this part of it, to your point, like it's always been the magic of CrossFit is because it was so closely mirrored to science, and obviously the medical institution, hopefully for the most part, is mired in science, sometimes more than others. I think it's a cool thing. And I think it's a full circle conversation. We talked about that in the last episode of like, I think this is only possible in this era of CrossFit. I think it wouldn't have been possible 10 or 15 years ago because it was too chaotic. But now we've got 20 years of experience. People like, I'm an 18-year CrossFitter. I have 2 decades of my life allocated to this thing. One thing we know, it didn't kill me. It didn't break me. I'm still doing it. I'm still getting better. I'm not aging as fast as I probably would be based on what everybody else looks like my age. So this might be working. So the anecdotal data might still be anecdotal, but it is strong data. And so I think now we're in that era.
Yeah, I was just going to say the interesting thing too, Tony, is that, the degree to which you cared about what your biomarkers may have looked like 20 years ago compared to now is probably not the same, right? And you think about how that demographic has changed within CrossFit, right? With the increasing number of masters, athletes, right, over the decades. I don't know what that data is, but my assumption would be that that's been kind of a linear, if not a logarithmic increase, right, on the master side. And so, it's really just doing our due diligence from a personal responsibility standpoint to make sure that we are as healthy as we can be so that we're here to do what we need to do and to support our family and friends as best we can, right?
No doubt. Yeah, for sure. One of the things in that conversation too, that I think we know CrossFit works. So I guess we're probably beating a dead horse here, but like what I do think is interesting is watching the change in the masters division, right? You see these athletes who are not their age anymore, right? They're doing these crazy things. But what I think is even more fascinating is watching how CrossFit has infiltrated the throwaway years, right? Like all of us who just wasted our 20s eating, drinking, doing whatever we could because we'll recover so quick. Like we just kind of toss those aside and just were like, whatever. You start taking it serious in your 30s. But there's a lot of humans who have grown up in a CrossFit gym now, and they started making changes in their teenage years, right? And like their 20s, they're already so far ahead. I'm like, this is not fair. We are so who even knows what those humans like? They are, at the risk of sounding, like a zealot, they are literally superhumans. Those kids that like I've done CrossFit longer than some of them are alive, and they've done CrossFit basically long. I'm like, wow, I've done it for like 2 decades of my life. You've done it your whole life.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, and it's just like a language too, right? Like you start when you start earlier and younger, like your ability to adapt.
It's just what you do.
Yeah, it's just it's part of you, right? And so I mean, we get the privilege to watch really the best teens in the world, right, down at Proven, and between Ryan and Olivia and Riley, like those guys just crush it.
Yeah,
right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so it's very impressive.
They're built, designed, and engineered mutants, but there's only the things that those kids can do, and the kids that grow up in the gym. It's just stuff that we all know to be true inside a gym. But what is nice is that if they don't throw away their 20s, and these kids won't, right? Because they get it at a different level. They understand the problem with sugar. They understand the value of sleep. They understand the effects of alcohol on their ability to train the next day. So like, what'll be very interesting is this data set that will become the 20 somethings in CrossFit now as they move into their 30s. How different they are as a 30-year-old will be staggering. I think if somebody actually starts studying these kids, you'd be like, wow, 30, like the joke of 40 is the new 20 will be very different, because like actually their blood quite literally has them still like as a teenager. It'll be very fun to watch, I think.
Yeah, too, but also, you know, the idea of health and performance kind of, you know, circulates around some of these like very high level teen athletes, and even the ones that aren't, you know, games bound and stuff. They're immersed in a community that cares, hopefully, that, you know, sleep makes you perform better on Fran, and, you know, eating well is better for, you know, backs, whatever it is, back squatting this and the other. And so that's different, right? When you have teens and younger folks in a community that has people that have a little bit more experience, where it's not the high school football player or whatever that got no real education on the importance of, you know, sleep and nutrition, and can slam cheeseburgers after practice and all this stuff. And then their 20s look very different, right? And their 30s look very different. And you see those folks walk into your affiliates like, oh, I used to be a high school athlete, but, you know, look at me now. And it's like, well, hopefully we can have those conversations with our young people so that they understand the importance of health at a young age, so that they don't have to try to turn back the clock when they're 35 and, you know, relearn how to, you know, eat appropriately and stuff. So it's not just for, you know, us that have progressed in the last 20 years that are, you know, I'm pushing 40 and all this stuff, and understand the importance of not wanting to age, but it's important for the young folks too also.
No, I think it's a great point. We philosophically, right, we start with a human first approach, right? If you're a healthy human, you're going to be a better athlete, right? And there are points on that continuum where optimizing performance can start to stray from optimizing health. Not so much in CrossFit necessarily if you're doing it the right way, but in other sports, it definitely is the case, you know, with our NFL guys and MMA folks that we work with, right? So there's always that discussion, though, that I'm first leading with your health as a person and as a human, and we can talk about how we may need to adjust this for performance and what that means for your health span and lifespan long term, right? But you always want to keep those things in perspective.
And I think, you know, that leads to another opportunity, I guess, where we can, you know, by having these relationships, tap into the whole network of people or whole tribe of people that are very distrustful of anything medical. So they're like, I never go to the doctor, I never get blood work done. Like, they just want to give me a pill, da da da. But they have a high trust score with their coach. So if their coach has a meaningful relationship, so, you know, like you said, being able to have the opportunity to understand that occasionally we need to look under the hood. You need to get the data. You need to look at these markers and know what you need. But if that message is coming from their coach rather than, you know, the old stereotype of the white jacket and you just need to sleep more, eat more broccoli, and, you know, stop doing CrossFit or stop doing things that are, you know, outside your realm of capability, it can work to build relationships both ways and get people in to either get that look under the hood that they need because they have that trust in their coach that information is going to be used to help them in what's important to them, not just sat and lectured to, but also the people who are very familiar with getting the blood work but are on the cycle of medications and, you know, all of that sort of stuff into a CrossFit facility where we can tick some of those other pillars that they need. So it's an opportunity to touch those people that are reluctant, I guess, on either side of the fence by building that trust score in the process and having that human first approach rather than, you know, hey, we're going to look at you for you, not just here's a set of guidelines that you should be achieving.
Yeah. I think, Lisa, the big challenge with that, right, is that, you know, the system as it's designed right now is specifically designed to not give you the time to do that, right? Because you talk a lot about trust, which is so important, right? And trust is built on a relationship, and it takes time to build relationships, right? And that's why we set up things the way that we have, where we spend usually 2.5 hours with somebody before we ever get a blood test, right?
Mm.
But then once you do get that blood work, like informed and shared decision making is also extremely time consuming, because it's not
Mm.
just me. It should never just be the old school paternalistic model of me telling you what to do. Like, that is not the world that we live in anymore, right?
Right.
How I see myself is that, because everybody has access to this information, right? You can go to Inside Tracker and get all your blood tests, right? But it's like, what the hell do you do with it? Right. And
Right.
how do I prioritize
Mhm.
which one is most important? Because now I got this whole list of things and 75 supplements, right, that are proprietary to this company that they tell me I need to take. Like, what's really important, right? So that's where the value with your healthcare provider, whomever they are, really starts to take shape, because they should be able to sit down with you and help triage all of this information. And
Mm.
I'll tell you what, it is extremely rare, not extremely rare, but it's pretty rare that I end a conversation where everybody is at least at that moment doing what I think they should be doing, right?
Yeah.
It is very common that someone decides to do something differently, which is completely fine. And I tell them that all the time. It's like,
Mm.
I am the arbiter of information here. This is your life. You're steering the ship, but you're going to be an informed captain one way or another,
Mm.
right?
Yep.
I'm not going to go back to something because that was funny, and we're going to take that as a soundbite, at least to make sure you write that one down. But I think what I think is powerful. So I think people listening to this might start to have this notion, maybe even this false sense of pride or arrogance, that like, if what we're doing already works, like, what do I need to do? Or like, how's this actually going to help me to quote unquote do more things? Because like, if you're telling me that it's already working, it's working. But I think what you just said in there, which is you start with the human first, right? We lead from there. And I think that's an important distinction, because, it's unfortunate to say, I think most affiliates would say that they do that, but they don't, right? They definitely lead from a performance first. Like, they have this notion, this idea, this concept of what performance looks like, and then they plug the human into that, right? And I think that's kind of the essence of what we refer to a lot of times as the training affiliate, versus leading with the human first. It's getting to know them and then getting them towards this idea of health. And it's an important kind of change there, because if you're an affiliate listening to this, you probably are like, okay, truly, if you're a business owner, you're like, what's in it for me? And at least you should be, because it's about time you start acting like a business owner. Affiliates, I'm talking to you. But there's what I think is important here is that there's three problems being solved. The first problem is that one thing we know to be true inside an affiliate is that we know what we do works, and it works really, really well. And one of the eternal frustrations for the rest of eternity is going to be, they just don't get it, right? They just don't appreciate, they don't understand it. If they just knew, or if they just came more, or if they just showed up, right? Like, and there's just this wishing, right? And so there's that problem. And so we know it works, but we don't really have any proof of it. Then in the middle, there's the client side of things. And to your point, Tom, like, it's very difficult to, once you decide, you know what, I should look under the hood, now you got to find a mechanic. Like, we talked about this in the last episode. Like, it's very difficult. You can't just go Google, health 3.0. You'll just find a whole bunch of, woo-woo out there. And for the most part, and to your point, you have access to all the information. Who's going to help you, understand and boil that down to something delineated, et cetera. And then on the third side, which is, the practitioner side, which is like, we aren't helping people, right? Like, there's a frustration because presumably everybody gets into the medical field because they want to help people. And then you learn slowly over time that, like, the system isn't designed to let me help them. It's designed to let me treat them, which isn't always the same thing. We can fix a problem, but we can't necessarily fix the root problem. So all three of these things become a confluence in this conversation. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, what's in it for me? It's that you get to solve an attrition and a value proposition problem. You get to help your clients better understand where to go to get the things they need. And the good news is it's going to be you, right? And then the third thing is you get to help the people in your community, your other, providers, the other doctors, et cetera, potentially the ability to work together in this thing, or you can circumnavigate them all together. And then that leads into this whole conversation itself. So I think it's important to know that, like, yes, what is happening in affiliate does work, with some important buts, right? Like, there's some things that are missing in terms of, you got to lead with the human first. That needs to be better in a lot more affiliates that, think that they do that. But you also need to understand, like, you have to really be making sure this whole thing was always built around performance was designed to be the predictor of health, right? And so if people aren't getting healthy doing this, and there's a lot of people in your gym who are probably working out 5, 6, 7 days a week and probably doing multiple sessions now at this point, and probably not recovering, and probably still skipping the nutrition block, probably, and like they're not getting healthier.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're like me. You guys are going to see my blood work soon. And speaking of those cheeseburgers, I like them. They're my therapy food. Right. And so is my ice cream.
I mean, I think you pinpointed like a bunch of dots, right, that kind of all come together. And, when I worked with my coaches not too long ago and, brought them in for evaluations with them, the other, it went back to, well, why did you want to be a CrossFit coach to begin with, right? And you could do that with affiliate owners as well. And everybody, right, literally everybody, they had given me 4 reasons. One of them was that they loved CrossFit, right? And they wanted to help people, right? And none of them are doing it. Most of them are not doing it because it's going to be their sole source of income for the rest of their lives and it's their main career, but they love this because they want to help people. And I have to believe that for the most part, affiliate owners got into this. I mean, I did, right? Because I loved CrossFit and I knew that it was helping people because it helped me, right? And so that's a baseline there. But when you come into repeated exposure with members who are beating their heads against the wall, that are coming in and trying to make gains, not seeing it, only thinking that it's 1 hour a day of their life that they get to, like, it's not just 1 hour of your day, right? It's all the hours of your day. And if you're seeing that person 4 and 5 and 6 times a week, and to offer them the level of coaching and support that is actually going to impact their performance on the long term, where they're not going to injure themselves and blame you and leave and all these things, like, it benefits everybody to care about the human, right? And so if you love CrossFit and you love to help people and you want to help your members get better and all of this, like, we have to triangulate all of those big points together, even if it comes from just understanding how it's all connected and how to just communicate that there's a reason why it works, right? And if it ends at that and you're not going to build a health home, great, but at least you can talk about why the other 23 hours are important, with confidence that you can reach your member at a human level.
Yeah, to dovetail off of that, I think it's very important for us to remember that you can be fit, but you're not necessarily healthy. And I think that'll make sense to most people, right? And the opposite can be true. Like, you can be outwardly not fit appearing, but from a lot of the core pillar standpoints, you could be relatively healthy. And I know that's somewhat sacrilegious to say in the CrossFit space, but I think a lot of us can get a false sense of security, right? If it's like, if I'm shredded and I have a 6-pack, then everything is all good. And it's like, most of the time it probably is, but if you aren't paying attention to the emotional or the recovery or the community aspect, right, which is one of the big buckets that oftentimes is missing in that scenario, you are not going to be the best version of yourself that you can be. Not to mention all the other medical things that can be masked by, a seemingly outward healthy appearance that you just don't know unless you look, right? So I think it's just important for all of us to remember that, because we're constantly surrounded by really fit people a lot of the time, right?
Yeah, I think Jen's point too, of understanding how it all works together, is such a simple statement, but such an important one, because I think it's very easy, especially for the affiliate owner, to get caught up in all of the distractions, how to run the business, et cetera, et cetera. Like, you almost kind of forget that life exists outside of your 1 hour, your 4 walls, right? Like, and so, we know that the people aren't necessarily always making the best decisions in those other 23 hours, right? And so, like, from a functional intervention perspective, it's the job of the affiliate owner to somehow better affect those 23 hours. Like, that's the eternal struggle for every affiliate owner. It's not just about how to utilize and build that best hour for them, right? Like, that's the minimum effective dose. We know that you must touch those other 23 hours, and the way that you do that is, by increasing utilization. But there has to be another level of quantification, because we can track the benchmarks, we can track the lifts, we can track the performance and be like, hey, based on these numbers, things appear to be going well. But, and there's a big but, what else are you doing? And to what degree could these things be better? Right. And it's like, all jokes aside, with the 6-pack, it's a very real thing, right? Like, for a long time, it was a thing, even Greg was like, your abs don't matter, right? Like, they're going to come, like, we don't need to pursue them. And then the games came and everybody just was literally chiseled out of stone. And everybody was like, it became the meme of all memes about like how you're a fat CrossFitter, but like there's a certain degree of value that came along with like functional levels of body fat aren't necessarily a bad thing, but the degree to which you have that level of body fat and being functional, that's a different conversation. But my point is that you could very quickly on accident fall victim to what we've thought for years, which is like, these, I guess in theory, if you thought that abs made you healthy, then bodybuilders would be healthier than you are, right? Because they're much leaner, but we know they can't even walk up the stairs, unfortunately. Right. Yeah. And so don't jump the shark. And so I think it's important that these conversations do happen. And I think that they are starting to happen more and more through health and through the health conversation. And, like one of the things Lisa brings up quite a bit, and I think where it really runs into an issue is people's willingness to have uncomfortable conversations. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the reasons we don't really do that much in the affiliate is that it's easy to be like, it's not my business what happens outside of the gym, right? Yep. But we know one thing to be true. If you made it your business, you could better affect what does happen in the gym. And I'm not saying you got to jump scope and you got to get into like marital problems and things of that nature, but it's worth noting and knowing that those things are happening so that you can make corrections and adjustments and considerations for those things. And so I think this sets people up to be a little bit more confident, understanding that like, and we talked about this in the last one, you're not just a coach, right? You're not just this fitness trainer, this guy, this person, this girl who's doing this thing. Like you have an actual professional role. And this, I think, lets people be like, yeah, I can ask, I have the responsibility, but I also have, the purpose to ask these tough questions now. And that I think is a big jump off.
I think, affiliate owners hopefully can understand the importance of being willing to go down that rabbit hole, right? Because personally speaking, like it's nothing more frustrating than to put your heart and soul into what you think is great programming and develop your coaches and craft a perfect hour for them and have a member that's been there for 6 months be like, and I'm not seeing any results. This isn't working for me. I'm leaving. One, to take that extremely personally, right? Because you like irrationally care for these people, like out of the gate, probably a lot more than it's not a balanced care. Right. So there's that. And then two, but it's like, is my follow-up question, well, how are you sleeping? Right. It's like, well, I sleep like crap. Well, does your spouse know that you wake up are they telling you wake up at night? Well, maybe you have sleep apnea. Here's my resources to help you address these things, because maybe that's why you're not seeing results. Right. Instead of like bearing this burden of like, oh my God, I am the worst CrossFit coach ever. And it's just like, it can help affiliate owners feel more confident in the product that they're trying to develop if they have an understanding about how to create resources that kind of handle all of the other shit that goes on that impacts whether or not somebody can improve their Fran time, right? So it helps that.
Yeah, and I mean, just to add to that, right? Degree, not kind. Like when we work with games athletes, like we're not telling them what to do within the box, right? Like they have coaches that are working with them on their programming and everything, right? It is meticulously trying to design what happens for the other 20 hours that they aren't inside there so that it's optimizing what happens in there. It's the same for all of us, right? Yeah. It's like if you're eating like shit and you don't pay attention to sleep and your relationships are a hot mess, like there is a ceiling that you will not be able to pass, right? That you can't work out your way through. And so it behooves all of us to pay attention to that, right? And if you acknowledge that as a coach, all you're doing is going to improve the outcomes of your members inside the box, and you're going to strengthen their connection to you because they know they have you as a resource.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's probably, so you said earlier in the, like, it's, 95-5, right? 95% of, health happens in the gym. The other 5% is essentially, healthcare. And
maybe 85-90. Give me more than 5.
My best, and that's where I was going.
More than a nickel, bro.
It's probably like a Pareto distribution because all things seem to be Pareto, so it's probably 80-20, right? The thing is that, yes, like my nutrition, 20% nutrition. But I think what we run into a lot with this is that 20% is a big 20. Right. It's a very heavily weighted 20, no doubt about it. And where I think the big struggle comes into is that we know, everybody in the gym knows 80% can be done here. 20% has to be done there, looking underneath the hood, doing the right things, making the adjustments, because it's mostly centered around like recover, right? If you're going to do this thing, you're going to beat yourself up. What are we doing to make sure that one, that's worth your time? Is it moving you? Like, that's always been the point of fitness, is measurable and improvable. And so I think a lot of people need to be reminded that more exercise is not better. I'll say this 1,000 times. And so we have to make sure that anything you do is actually making you fitter. You're not just doing it, but that's a different conversation. But the point, I guess, is that we know that works, and we need to make sure through that work with the 20%, we should be able to test, verify, and validate that that is working. But that's not really been able to happen for many years up to this point, until now we're starting to create relationships like you guys, where it's like there is the ability to work together, because everybody knows it's been the cross affiliate owner versus is a war against the doctors, right? And there's the old meme about you guys keep me in business and all those things. Because I think what ends up happening is that most of society would consider that 80-20 distribution to be 80% doctor, pharmacy, pharmacology, et cetera, 20% fitness. And like, that's just not the truth. And so that is shifting, not only just in the affiliate space. I think that collectively, social media, et cetera, are starting to get aware that, like, hey, I should go outside more. I should be more active. I should do things. Everybody's walking 10,000 steps a day now. Everybody's, getting into cold plunges. Everybody's doing these things, and hopefully they do last longer than the hashtag trend does. But I think that it's there. But what we never had before was the resource like you guys have created, which was the ability, because it's very difficult not only to find a doctor that you could trust as your own doctor, but knocking on a doctor's door and being like, hi, I would like to create a working relationship between what we do and what you do. They'd be like, hi, I'd like you to fuck off because I got too much shit to do. I got my next 17 patients I got to see in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's been broken. And I think, to bring it full circle into how you guys do what you do, it's hard to find a working relationship. And I think they're out there, but what you guys have put together is the ability to validate that 80-20 distribution and to use that 20% to really validate the other 80%. Because the big problem inside affiliates is that if it's just about the workouts and it's just about the intensity, it's just about beating yourself up, not only does that get old after a while for most people when the PRs start falling off, et cetera, it's infinitely accessible, right? You can go to your gym, you can go to your garage gym, you can start doing it in the woods, you go to the gym down the street, you can go to one of the cheese dick brands to do it if you want to, right? And so, like,
Shout out,
if that's the thing you're after, then go after it. But if you were continually validating it in that 20% and and testing it and getting the metabolic panels done and getting your blood work done, you'd realize, like, oh, when I left the CrossFit gym and I started going to my other place, my markers changed. I should go back to the gym. That was missing. And I think now, hopefully now, moving forward through relationships like this, that changes in many ways.
Me too.
Cheers.
And I think, having that consistency of information and the consistency of the interpretation of the information is a big thing. Like, I've recently just been through a process where I had to get some blood work done for a dietitian person I've been working with, and my doctor had prescribed it. So I just went and used that thing, got it. Dietitian goes, yeah, no, everything looks good. We don't need to add anything. Go to the doctor, and she goes, you didn't come in and get your results. I said, oh, no, I just got it for the dietitian. I said, she said everything was fine. She goes, well, actually, yes, you're normal, but I now look at these things. So they were both looking at completely different things. According to one, you're cruising, you're fine. The other one's like, well, so it's having that consistency. So you're not having these people nitpick at each other and fight at each other as going, well, I'm the authority, or, this is what's important to me. If we've got, if people can get, as we know, consistency of data is king. So if you're, measuring the same things, and then you trust the people who are interpreting that data for you, goes a long way to you then being able to follow through going, okay, now I see why the sleep's important, because we're all on the same page about what that's doing behind the scenes. Yes, I need to eat more broccoli or drink more water or do whatever. That's why it's affecting these things, and these are important, not just, oh, well, I'm smarter than your coach, or I'm smarter than your doctor, or these are the only things that matter. I think that consistency goes a long way to again, like I said earlier, about building that trust and getting people to buy in and engage in the process.
Yeah, Lisa, you just kind of mentioned the elephant in the room, unfortunately, which is that on the medical side, right, there there isn't a kind of standard level of understanding of how to leverage a lifestyle concepts approach and how important it is. Like I think
Mm.
because we don't get taught that, right? And so literally the last decade of my life has been this educational process, right? That has taken me on many different, travels and routes, right? And exploratory, programs. But all of that being said is that education had to happen, right? And so that
Mm.
is the real challenge before us. And it's part of what we're ultimately working on with CrossFit too, is to start to create a reservoir of providers that people can tap into who are kind of aware of the importance of a lifestyle concept approach that
Mhm.
people can reach out to in the future. But the problem is that, the typical medical community, right? The standard line is that it takes about 20 years for
Mm.
the general medical practice to catch up with where the evidence is at the moment, right?
Mm.
And so that's the scary part, is that we've got some work to do, right? To
Mhm.
build a nucleus of providers who can provide support to affiliates at large in the United States and around the globe to continue to push this forward, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a lot harder to teach hard-headed doctors, especially if they've been indoctrinated in a sick care, treat a symptom or a disease model, to flip the script and start thinking about things and practicing in a different way. Not to mention the business side, which
Mhm.
is a whole nother conundrum for a physician who, most of whom, are feel trapped in what they do because they wouldn't even know how to begin to address that component of it, right?
Mhm.
So
Mm.
there's a lot there in what you're talking about in regards to the consistency. But the
Mm.
cool thing is that it's pretty clear the impact that metabolic dysfunction has on chronic disease, and the evidence is there. It is very clear the impact that being underslept slept has on chronic diseases, right? Be they strokes, cardiovascular disease, dementia. I mean, the list goes on, right? The trick now, right, or the work now, is in conveying the importance of that, but also educating individuals on how to address and enact change, right? And that side of it just takes a lot of time.
Mm.
Yeah, it's big ship, little port, right? It
Mhm.
takes
Mm.
so the medical facility, institution, whatever you want to call it, it's a big ship full of a lot of individuals that I think still, for the most part, are well intended. And so one of the big problems with changing so much in any industry is accepting, of course, that you were wrong. And in this case, on that side, it's hard because you're talking about matters of health and people's lives, and you're like, it's nobody wants to be wrong in general. That's a human condition, but to be wrong and know that, like, uh-oh, I could have been potentially, like, terminally wrong, is it will take a long time, but CrossFit as itself becomes that little ship in port, which is really easy to pivot and maneuver. And I think, that kind of becomes the tugboat that helps move this thing around in
Yeah.
many different ways. And
Yeah,
to
Tony,
that,
to your point, man, I think it's not that they're wrong, but it's a
right.
reframing, right?
Yeah.
It's a reframing of how you think and how you prioritize things. And Karin, I thought, said this really eloquently about her grandfather, right, who
Mm.
performed the first heart transplant on the intro to the health conference, right? He's like, he did the first one ever in the history of the world, and he did
Mhm.
like 130 or however many it was throughout his life. He's like, if I had focused on talking to people about prevention, I could have saved 1,000,000 lives instead of
Yeah.
100, right? And that's essentially what we're talking about doing, is that by reframing how we think about disease and treatment to become proactive and preventative instead of reactive and sick based, essentially, we can completely flip the script, right?
Mhm.
And but that's scary for providers,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it is. I mean, talk about being intimidating for an affiliate or a health coach to
Mhm.
start exploring this, right? But with the support of a medical service who's teaching them how to do it, like, that's very doable. But like for a doctor to do this,
Mm.
that's very, very intimidating.
And I
Yeah, for
think they get stuck in that space. We all hear that old saying, like, there's no money in a cure. The
Mm.
money's in people, repeat customers who need to keep coming back in and getting their script filled and rather than if we prevent these things and we can change them where people don't need that, then all down that ecosystem of enterprise, I guess, starts to suffer. And people then, that's where people, I think, develop a lot of distrust of the current system. Is like, there's no money in curing me, there's only money in treating me, so why would I go down that path? And then
the doctors are distrustful of that system too, right? But the powers that be, which are the medical industrial complex and the pharmaceutical companies, are very aware of that. Right? And so they have no vested interest in you becoming less dependent on medications or hospitalizations or procedures, right? Which only happen if you're sick. But physicians do, and they want to do it differently, and they want to be able to look themselves in the mirror. And and I don't want to sound Pollyannish about this, but we never started doing this for the money. And I've just always felt like I'm going to do what feels good. I'm going to know what is right. It's the right thing to do for people. It's how I would want to be treated if I was a patient. And the finances, hopefully will take care of themselves. Right. And essentially life, it's funny how life works out that way. It's like if you're moving in the right direction, your heart's in the right place, and you're authentic, people can see that. Right. And they will connect with you and stay with you. Right. If you're being real with them. Right. They can feel that.
It's the original Greg Glassman line, isn't it? Doing the right things for the right reasons for the right people. And, the right things will happen from that. And, if that's your guiding principles, then you're going to make better decisions and do things simply because it's aligns with values, which, we talk to clients a lot about is what are your values? What's your why? And how does that help you make decisions that are going to make people better? And it allows you to get past the concept of, I'm not in this for the money and I feel guilty about charging people and helps you get past some of those limiting self-beliefs, because you're like, I'm compelled to help you because this is the right thing to do with my particular skill set.
Yeah. I think I've never met a bad doctor, truly. It's easy to get caught up in the healthcare industrial complex and pharmacy man bad and all these things that we know to be true and all the stuff that we know around it. But at the end of the day, we end up pointing our fingers at the doctors, right? But I've never walked into a doctor's office and he's been like, yeah, I'm going to give this guy a whole bunch of medicine. I'm going to go on. Sure, there's perks, there's kickbacks, there's things like that. And that might facilitate or sway their bias. But I have never, ever met a doctor who's just been like, I'm going to take advantage of every motherfucker today that walks in the office. And it's the exact opposite. But we've all grown up going to the doctor, right? And I think this is part of the issue too, is where we've gone to the doctor. And I think outside of like the pediatrician relationship, where I feel like that was the end of where most people felt like they actually had a relationship with their doctor, because as a child you just didn't know the harms of the world. You're just like, I loved my doctor, right? But then after that you move into kind of the sick care system, right? Because everybody cares about you as a child, but all of a sudden you move away from your pediatrician. And you can see this because how long people try to stay with their pediatrician, right? Like you're like, no, you've got to go now, I can't treat you anymore. And like they move into it, and I think that the trust begins to break there. And so we end up with this, 20, 30, 40 years of experience of a doctor, and there's not much for a relationship anymore. And I think maybe it might be of value to better understand like what it is that it could look like what you guys do. Like if you can walk people through like potentially what it looks like when somebody does become a patient for you guys, and like how that looks different, because I think that would shock people.
Yeah. Well, I think too, though, you talk about going from the relationship that you have with your pediatrician to an adult, and like somehow in that transition, it becomes, I'm only going to the doctor when I'm sick. So then you're already kind of like preconditioned to think that you only need that when you're sick or you need something, right? So the relationship evolves based on sickness, not on other things, right? Versus creating a relationship with a coach and an affiliate or at another gym or whatever, where you're building a relationship not because you're sick, right? But because you're looking to do something else. And so the context of how relationships are built are completely different, right? Philosophically speaking. So like there's that. But, our patients come to us and it literally starts with conversations first. And Tom alluded to this before, but like, first, I usually speak with them, right? In terms of just like, are you sure you're at the right place? Like, I just want to make sure that, like, how did you hear about us? What is it that we can do? What is this idea that you have in your brain about how you think we work, or how can we work with you, right? And sometimes they come with an idea of what our services are, and sometimes they don't. And we spend time just kind of doing the, the high level overview of why we're even talking in the first place, right? And that can be 15, 20, 30 minutes, right? And, some people want to be heard, right? And if it 5 out of 10 times it's about a bad experience they had with the physician, the other few times it's about they have goals, doesn't matter. And then after that, we set them up and they have a pretty in-depth intake appointment, hopefully in person if we can do that, right? But can be done virtually if necessary. And it's with Tom and myself. And it's, really understanding medical history things and things that have gone on in your past, not just, clinically speaking, but also like, what does your exercise routine look like? What does your sleep routine look like? Like, what does your life look like, right? How much time do you have for yourself? How is your job going? Like all of this kind of like, tell me who you are as a person so that we can identify the ways in which we can get you to where you want to be, like with the clearest trajectory forward, right? And then from there, we can go over a whole bunch of ways that we can collect data to support that, right? Tom said it earlier, right? We want things to be measurable and repeatable, and we need to evaluate what that stuff is too. And that's part of that scientific process, right? Is being able to understand how to evaluate and then make changes. And evaluation is a thing that can make people uncomfortable because you have to be able to say, well, that's not working, so how do I do it differently, right? And then so from data collection, we just go from there.
Yeah, I think the first thing though that you have to recognize, like the very first thing that comes out of my mouth when we sit down with somebody is, why are we here?
Yeah.
What brought you to this place? Because that is what sets the stage for everything that's going to happen and how this discussion is going to go, and surfacing the need, right, of the person that's sitting in front of me so that I can actually be a resource to them. Because if I talk over their head and we completely circumvent the fact that they had a traumatic experience with a provider, or they feel like their parent died because they were ignored by a physician, that they don't trust the system anymore, like that will come up eventually when you don't listen to what I say 20 times. And I'm like, what is going on? You know what I mean? Like, so we have to put everything on the table. So it starts with that complete honesty, openness, trust, so that they know that I'm there for them. And I know that they feel safe enough to convey to me what it is that's most important to them. Right. And then from there, we go, into all the medical stuff. Right. But it's just like anything else, man. It is all about relationships and trust. And we have to build that first.
Yeah. I mean, I think anybody that's listening to this, we should probably, I speak for everybody here, I'm sure some people do have great doctor relationships. It's probably like, what the fuck? Mine's not like that. And it's not, again, it's not because you're the doctor bad, or it's the very nature of how the system works. And so I think it highlights very quickly based on one thing, which is that first conversation, right? Listen, most doctors come in the room, why are you here today? And you're like, I have a boo-boo, right? And they're like, okay, fix the boo-boo. But like, it's not a conversation of like, yeah, but how did you get the boo-boo? Like, why is that boo-boo a problem for you? Like, and getting past that and getting to know the person. And it's not because your doctor is potentially bad. It's just that there's no room in the model for that for most people. And I envision a world where these two things do work together. I know you guys do too, where, the CrossFit affiliates are health homes. They are, because we know it's working. We know that it's fixing it. And, to hear all that science on that stage in Austin, proving it. And then it just so happens that it all accidentally happens every day in an affiliate is huge. But to now have a relationship with people like yourself and practices like yourself, where, you can continue and build a relationship with somebody who, I think the second part of that conversation, which is follow up with you. Like right now, for most people, the next time you follow up is your next checkup, right? Or like maybe when the prescription runs out, or, something of that nature. But to your point, it's like, okay, why are you here? Then there's a plan, then there's an idea, and here's the data that we're going to use. And then we're going to keep making sure that this is moving this thing forward. That's the key pivotal change in terms of how we better utilize the other 23 hours and how we validate what we do with that 24th hour inside the affiliate, and how that really moves the needle, or removes the needle, I should say. And I think that part is huge. And I know that was the high level basics of how you guys do it, but I think anybody that's listening to that is like, yeah, my doctor don't do that, right? And, and that's important.
And then I think there's two other things that are conceptually important too, right? And it's between the two of us, like the understanding why we're sharing this information and why it's valuable for the patient or the person to understand how to make decisions. Like there has to be an education piece, because we want these folks to take ownership of what their health journey is going to be, right? And understanding a lot of these things is important too, right? And then also the fact that this is a active participant relationship, right? So like we're gonna do these things, we're gonna talk about them, we're gonna have an understanding of where you are and where you want to go, but like you're actively partaking in your health, right? And that's important, right? It's not a passive relationship. And that's where continued support, especially from folks that you see every day, becomes a real big value add for people that want to be actively involved in owning, their healthcare journey, but, do need that continued support.
Yeah. To finish the first kind of phase of what the patient journey looks like, Tony. So everyone does that medical intake process with Jen and I, and then it's data collection phase, right? So it's blood work, body composition analysis, metabolic rate testing in various forms. And then we come back together to review all of that data. And you essentially leave that visit with a lifestyle concepts plan, right? From behaviors to your nutrition strategy based on what your goals are, to adjustments in your training protocol, that are informed from the markers and your composition goals. And it's overwhelming. Like it is a lot of information, right? And everybody comes to the table with varying levels of background. And some people can take that and they can run with it. And they're like, awesome, doc. Thanks for the memories. Got my plan. I'm out of here. And it's like, go for it, brother. Like we are here. If you need us, hit me up whenever. Like, good luck. Give them an attaboy and they're out the door. Most people, right, will need more support to start to unpack what this means, right? And whether that's checking in with us from time to time, whether it's just having a coaching relationship with Jen, which is really what most people need, right? To really be able to execute on the nutrition strategy and how to adjust their training and how to make that work. Because the medical stuff, a lot of times, like we can do that in pretty discrete bites, and that's not a big lift. And that's why this concept works so well for an affiliate, because that plan can be built. And then instead of Jen having to do that, right, once the coach or the affiliate owner has the appropriate level of education, they can provide that support and they can run with the plan. And then they have us as a resource when they need us.
Yeah. I don't really know how anybody doesn't hear that soundbite and not get excited. Cause for me, maybe I'm a little bit of weird a nerd, but I'm like, that sounds amazing. So I think anybody else hears that too, hopefully. And they're like, yeah, because it just makes sense, especially if, like to your point, you are a CrossFitter, right? Because all things that we know to be true and matter and be important seem to be making an impact. And so having more data and having a better plan and having, more, follow-ups, I suppose, just seems like a no-brainer. I could see maybe if you weren't inside an affiliate, though, how things like that would seem strange and would be weird. And that's why I think it's so important that and it's so pivotal that this starts in an affiliate and then graduates to this or vice versa. And it becomes this, a synergistic model, which is just super cool. And
it goes both ways. And I'll tell you that, we see just as many folks are CrossFitters who are. A lot of them end up being CrossFitters. A lot of them don't. But this will happen with affiliates who, start to do this work as well, is that they'll start working with folks on these plans. Their friends will be like, what are you doing? And they'll be like, you should talk to my CrossFit coach, right? And you can just have health consultation appointments, right? Where you may talk about CrossFit and bring people into your affiliate, or you just do this work with them and it becomes a personal training, opportunity, or, you're just focusing on health coaching for them and it's another revenue stream, right?
And I think that's a good segue into what I think will become like part 3 of this, which is like how you apply this in an affiliate, which I think will be very valuable to them. I thought maybe we might get through both of them, but I just started talking shit, get excited. So we didn't get there. And Jen said cheeseburger. Now I'm hungry. So we're going to end this one soon so I can go eat something. But I think I love what you guys do and how you do it. And I love how it, it essentially was built around or into an affiliate, which I think makes so much sense. And hopefully anybody that's listening to this, it's an aha moment. I think it was an aha moment if you went to the summit and you watched the summit, but if you didn't do that and you're just listening to this podcast or it comes on your newsfeed, I think it will also be an aha moment. And so hopefully it generates a lot of traction and they can reach out to you guys. And maybe that's a good way to close it down. Like, how do they get more information, more access to Tom and Jen? Like, what's the best way to do that?
On our website, there's actually a jot form. So if folks are interested, whether they're an affiliate owner, a healthcare professional, or a coach or whatever, we just collect some baseline data for right now, how to get a hold of them. And then hopefully in the next week or so, we'll be following up with some exciting ways to keep moving forward.
Yeah. And, and I will say too, that it's a conversation and it's a two-way street, right? And so ideally we're connecting and saying, is this a good fit for you? Are you in the right place, in your career that this makes sense from a time and potentially financial investment? And are we the right fit for you too? Right. I mean, and so it goes both ways, and because we want to make sure that we're setting people up for success and an enjoyable experience and not just another stressor or something they think that they should be doing or have to do in their day that ends up not being a value add. Right. So I think that exploration and making sure that, we always talk about a three-way yes, right? Head, heart, gut. And if you have a three-way yes, and we're both aligned with that, I think the sky's the limit,
So you mean to tell me you're pre-screening candidates to whether or not they're a good fit for you? You're not trying to take every single client? What's wrong with you? That's weird. Strange in this industry. Hopefully affiliate owners are listening to that, because you can't take everybody.
I think I've heard of that model somewhere before, but I think the way that we've broken up these podcasts into clearly multiple conversations speaks to not the let's just dump it all on you in 45 minutes, like let's build the information, the background, and then get into how this can be implemented. So we're building that relationship, which is what the common thread through the first two previous chats, and we'll continue on the next one in like, how does this build and how does this grow, rather than just, okay, we're just going to dump this information on you in 45 minutes, because it's a lot. And if we're changing the paradigm of the way people see things and think about things, you need that time to hear different concepts and different perspectives to have that sort of percolate through and think a bit. So I like the way that we've broken this down, and, we love chatting to you guys. So we definitely can't wait for the next chat, which will be coming up very, very soon.
That's awesome, Lisa. And I think you just raised a super important point that I just want to highlight, that yes, there is a structure to this, but just how every affiliate is a reflection of their community, the way that this gets deployed and what it looks like in your affiliate, like it's not going to be the same everywhere. Right.
Sure.
So the scope, the degree, what you focus on, like it can be a reflection of what you are most interested in and what's going to be of the most benefit to the people who you work with. Right.
Yeah.
And I feel very strongly about that. Right. It's what Greg always talked about. Right. It's a reflection of the community. The cream rises to the top. Like if you do good work and you're passionate about it and authentic, like we talked about before, it's going to be successful. So it's not about, a cookie cutter thing. This is about giving everyone the education so that they can develop a vision, right, and then create it in their own environment.
Yep,
no doubt.
And that's super powerful.
The highlight of this episode is the way that Lisa says percolate. So. Just go back to hearing Lisa say percolate, because it's much cooler than when I say it. So just go back to that part of it. No, I love this episode. I mean, I've loved this whole series, and I'm very proud of how it's rolling out, because I do think it's so important that it would be a disservice to try to smush it in and try to breeze past it and put it into one episode. I mean, you could obviously binge it, but it's fun to kind of work through it a little bit more organically and just talk about those pieces of it, as opposed to like a 3-hour pitch, so to speak. And so I'm glad that we're doing it this way, and hopefully it's valuable to anybody that's listening to it. But if nothing else, it also helps people realize or rethink their relationship with their pursuit of fitness and how they're testing and applying it and building, their health span, and really honestly rethinking or, investing in their relationship with their current doctor and what that could look like for them and for all their clients. And so I look forward to the third one, which I guess will be the application side of this thing, and what it kind of looks like to apply this thing in an affiliate and how it could be different from one to the other. And that'll be cool. But always appreciate your guys' time and the soulful sounds of Tom's voice.
Awesome.
So, great to hang
All right.
out with you guys. I appreciate it. We'll do it again soon. Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the
Bye.
next one.
All right,
Thank
you guys.
Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please remember to like and subscribe on your favorite platform. And if you know an affiliate owner, a coach, or entrepreneur that would benefit from hearing our conversations, please share this with them. We love the feedback and support we have from you guys, our audience. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find all the useful links in the show notes. We would love to connect with you. Keep doing the great work.